Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I am excited to be here today. I've got Aldrete with Black Lab Remodeling. He's located in Woodland, California. Really excited to have you on the show, Al. It's been a long time working with you. It's been awesome seeing all of your success. So welcome to Builder Stories.
Well, thank you for having me, Eric. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a little bit of backstory? How did you get into construction in the first place?
Okay. So how I got into construction in the first place is kind of a windy road. But the short story is I got fired. I got fired as being a plant operations manager for a senior living facility. And when I came home with that last paycheck and presented it to my wife, she said, "Well, you got 2 weeks to figure something out because the mortgage is due." So, before that, my background was actually in finance and economics. I have a degree in economics, but walked out into the garage, saw a bunch of the tools I had inherited from my grandfather, and figured, you know what, I've been working in basically apartment complexes for the last year and a half, 2 years, and might as well start a handyman business. So I went out and reached out to all my old contacts and started Aldrete Maintenance and Handyman Services, and ran that for about 7 years until I was able to apply for my contractor's license in California. And then Black Lab Remodeling, Black Lab Home Repairs and Black Lab Remodeling was born.
Well, aren't you glad you got fired?
It truly, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it gave me that impetus to make a run for myself and to bet on myself and get the training and services that I needed in order to finally make a successful business. So
Yeah. Sure it didn't feel great at the time, but in hindsight, right, everything is yeah.
No, it didn't feel great at the time, and I was very scared starting out, but at the same time, I knew I was going to be okay.
So interesting though, you started as a handyman, maintenance type work, much smaller job. So I guess, was that something that, you just out of necessity, whatever jobs came your way, you're willing to go in and do them and just kind of get your feet under you? I mean, did 7 years to get the contracting license? I mean, does it typically take that long, or you just kind of didn't think to go take it to that next level?
So no, in California, it's kind of, well, not weird, but it's difficult to get your contractor's license if you don't have training from the time you're basically a graduate from high school. If you're not in the trades, getting that experience, you have to get it somewhere else. And so in order to become a licensed GC up until about 3 years ago, you had to have 4 years of experience building houses, basically, or being on commercial job sites. Recently, they changed and added a new license, which is a remodeler license, basically. So you'd have the 2 years or 4 years of experience doing more of the handyman work, not necessarily having the structural stuff included in it. And so basically that's what my license is I call it a GC Light. We just don't do any ground up building, and we don't remove anything structural.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that you got got your license?
It's 3 years ago this month, actually. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So November.
So about a decade in total?
About a decade in total, yep. Yeah,
Nice.
10 years.
So when you started, just kind of thinking back at the very beginning, like how did you sort of think about sales and marketing and where your first customers were going to come from? Like, how did that all kind of come to start working out for you?
So marketing wise, I was no stranger to networking. I belonged to the Chamber of Commerce. I was in a Rotary. I had been in BNI type of groups, and so I just hit that network, and I hit it hard. I just told them, I'm no longer doing the senior living thing. I'm now able to come in and do repairs at your house. If you got a leaky faucet or need to change out some light fixtures, I can help you. I'm your guy. Um, and so that's really where I got started, was hitting that natural market that I had and friends and neighbors, you
Yep.
know.
So, and you were also doing all of the work yourself?
Yeah. Yep. I was doing all the work myself. And now transitioning from that work and going into the remodeling that we do, I still do some of the work, although I'm transitioning out of that and going straight into sub only, or trade partners. So,
Nice.
got a good team of trade partners that we're working with now.
So did you, when you were building kind of the handyman business, did you end up hiring people at some point?
Nope. No,
All
I
right, 7
stayed
years, all you, huh?
7 years, all me, and my body can attest for it too.
Yeah,
Crawling under houses,
man,
all that. Yeah. I
that's,
figured that
that
there's no
that
better
that's
way to get the experience.
yeah, there you go. So what kinda what led you though? Like, what was there some sort of a point in that 7 years where you just said, "Man, like, I need to do something different. I wanna take it to the next level." What kinda what precipitated you deciding to try to go and do the license?
More and more people are asking me to do bigger
Okay.
and bigger jobs, and, I just I didn't feel right trying to take those on without the license.
Yeah.
Some might call me a little scared or chicken to bend the rules that way, but, um, I just wasn't willing to put my family on the line like that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So how would you say, like from a sales standpoint, I mean, like what were the biggest differences? Because I mean, I see a lot of people they're kind of in that same sort of boat, thinking about transitioning or maybe just transitioned or haven't yet. But like, what do you see the biggest differences like from a sales standpoint when you're selling? Let's call it a couple thousand job to tens of thousands or $100,000 jobs.
The there's not much of a difference outside of the zeros, right, that you're adding on to it. The concept of selling or communicating with the client is the same. It's finding out what their motive is and what the reason behind they want these either repairs done or the new kitchen or bathroom done. Um, and the one thing that I've learned, especially over the last couple of years, is really the clients have all the answers. I don't need to come to them with all the answers. And I think that was one of the things that, um, maybe was a hurdle that I had to get over the most was dealing with that imposter syndrome. And I know you've had somebody on this before talking about imposter syndrome. Um, but not being in the trades and not having that foundational experience that a lot of other contractors do bring with them kind of put up a barrier, the self-imposed barrier. But I have found now that that's probably my greatest ally is not being inundated or burdened with all that knowledge, right? I can really be free to ask questions of the clients and find out what it is that they are hoping to achieve without me feeling like I have to have all the answers because they, like I said, they have all the answers that really matter.
Yeah. That's a great kind of great point there. Do you when when you first go in or maybe let's take a step back. So why don't you tell us kind of what is your sales process look like today?
So the top line sales process is they are finding me and going through our website, filling out the form, that is linked directly to JobTread, so they come right into there. Once it hits the submit, they're going to a Calendly link and setting up a discovery call. And, um, like a lot of other contractors that, you know, through Battleground. We all follow the same Shinfu process, right? Asking those open-ended questions, and gathering all that information. And then it goes into next steps. And either they're going to move forward with us going into a design, or we're going right into construction, but the design's always going to happen. So we're more often than not, we're moving into a design phase first. And then we're getting them those final numbers and bringing in our trade partners and all of that. But the main focus is that discovery call and getting them to spend 20 to 30 minutes with us, really diving into the heart of their project.
Yeah. And so is that have you always handled your sales process like that, or is that, since kind of joining Battleground and learning the Shinfu?
Um, More since joining Battleground and learning the Shinfu. Um, as I mentioned, I had a long road getting to construction, and prior to that, I was in banking and financial services. Had a lot of corporate sales training, and the ABC sales, always be closing sales, high pressure, and that never really sat well with me. And so finding this a little more laid back, if you will, approach to having a conversation with clients really spoke to me. And when I found Tom on YouTube, and then finally got into Battleground a few years later, that really made sense to me, and really clicked with my personality and the way I like to do sales, which is just trying to help the client out to my
Yeah.
best ability.
So for everyone out there who doesn't know about Battleground and Shinfu, maybe you can take a minute, kind of just describe that to them.
Sure. So Battleground is a group of contractors, group coaching, and led by uh, Tom Reber and several coaches that are all active contractors, and they do teach the sales process. The Shinfu, it was created by Steven Shinholzer, and the main premise of that is to protect your time and not go running out to go give that free estimate and do the tap dances, as Tom likes to call it, but rather sit at the comfort of your own office or my garage, and you know ask basically open-ended questions that get the client talking. Make sure you cover their motive, the reason for them wanting to do the project, cover the money, how much things are going to cost, what their timeline's looking like, um, figure out if there's going to be anybody else involved in the project. So that way you don't get out there and all of a sudden they tell you, oh yeah, I got to talk to Auntie Beth over here, and she's going to be writing the check for the whole project, and got to get her to sign off on it. Meanwhile, you've spent, you know, 4 or 5, 6 hours on putting together a proposal, just to have it blow up in your face. So that's the idea, is to make sure that we protect our time, but as well as the client's time, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been really awesome to see the impact that Battleground and kind of the various programs that the Contractor Fight has put on over the years. I get to be a silent fly on the wall, just observing, but it's really neat just seeing like such an awesome community, and how you guys like literally like support each other and do the role plays and do the training. I mean, it is such a great opportunity to really practice, before you get out there and actually have to do it in the real world. And like, I love how, all the collaboration. I mean, I'm a huge fan of people working together and going through the motions, because like ultimately, like that's how you're going to get more and more reps in without having to burn real prospects. You can role play with each other. And so it's just, it really has been a neat program, and just seeing the success and how it really helps people go in. I think a lot of times maybe feeling a little bit lost, feeling like they're lacking in sales and not really having a clear, cohesive strategy on how to manage that sales process. And so I think, obviously this approach isn't, that people have all sorts of different approaches, and not everybody wants to employ the Shinfu approach. But for those that are in a position or selling jobs and positions that, make sense for them, like this is a great way to, really refine that skill.
Well, absolutely, and you mentioned the role plays, and that's the one thing in all the corporate training that I had that was never really enforced. It was suggested, and it's not to say that in Battleground it's enforced, you have to do it, but there is, that group enthusiasm and almost peer pressure to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the peer pressure in a good way, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We're all competitive by in nature, and so there's a fun little rivalry that goes on when you get involved in that. But the the corporate training side, you would go, you'd have your sales training, and then they'd say, okay, you're off. And as you said, you waste time and practice on live clients
Mhm.
versus with somebody else to get through all the stumbling blocks. Whereas here
Yeah.
we have the opportunity to practice and get those repetitions in and really fine tune the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm sure it leads to a lot of people, quit wasting their time, going out. I mean, I don't know before it. I mean, did you used to drive around to go call on people every single time, or, have you
Oh yeah.
always kind of done the prequel?
No, no, I did what everybody else did because that's what everybody does, right? You get in your truck, you drive all over creation and hope that you're gonna land at least one of those 20 jobs that you go to each day.
Yeah. And so you talked about kind of having a design phase sometimes, but not always. Is that, are you selling a design agreement and kind of getting into it and working with, do you have a designer on staff, or do you have like, third party designer that you work with?
So the designer on staff is me, and I do use Canvas as a app to go out and scan properties and then
Okay.
bring it back into Chief Architect. I actually the first hire that I've done just started last week, and that's my virtual assistant, Diana. She's through TrueWorks, and one of the things that I just talked to her today about was we need to find a designer. I I'm getting backlogged now in the design agreements, and so I need somebody else to take that on so that we can keep closing sales and get projects put into production.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that
Yeah.
it's one of those growth pains.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like there is an opportunity to certainly find somebody who you can kind of tap into and let them help kind of get the mundane part of it done for you, and then maybe even the takeoff part too, where then you can just review, get it into your budget, kind of look at the numbers, kind of go forth from there.
That's exactly what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
is to get that part taken care of because, um, what I love about job trade in particular is the fact that it is so easy to get everything put into the calculations so that when it comes time to talk to somebody on the phone, I'm just tapping a couple of different catalog items and putting together the budget, and we're off and running.
Yeah. So is that where, I mean, sounds like you're really spending the bulk of your time in the sales, estimating, design phase. I mean, how are you managing the projects, the construction, active jobs there?
So that's another great question, and that's where I actively use job trade again because it allows me to still be able to make that transition from the design phase into the production phase and get the bid request in, line up the trades, and get them on the schedule and show them when they need to come in and what timelines we've got to get the each phase done. So that's where we are right now as far as that. And my goal is to simply be able to hand off the project to each trade partner at the right time. You know, I'll be there. I shake the trade partner's hand, let the client know what we're doing, and they're in for that day or week, whatever time frame they need to
Sure.
be in there for to get that phase done, and then we're moving on to the next one. But if I can, if I spend most of my time driving from job site to job site, then I'll be a happy person. I'll be a happy contractor for the time being, and then we'll look at getting a PM that will manage specific jobs as well. But
Sure. So when maybe tell us a little bit more. So what's like your ideal job? Kind of what average size of job, how long it typically takes you to complete? I mean, are you going in kind of, kitchens, baths, additions? You know, what's your typical job look like?
so kitchens and baths are our bread and butter, and then we've got an oddball category for one of the municipalities we work in, which requires resale permits, and that's where the city inspectors get to go in and verify permits and what work has been done, permitted and not permitted. And if they see something that has been permitted or they don't have a record of, then before the sale of the house or before um, the close of escrow, that needs to be corrected. And so that actually makes up about 60% of our work versus the kitchen and bathroom remodeling. But it tends to lead into those because as you get sellers or buyers coming in, um, they want they want to have stuff redone. And if you've already been there and corrected all the work, they know you know how to work with the city. So that's pretty fun. But yeah, our ideal project would be a kitchen or a bathroom, and size is roughly between the 50,000 to $125,000 mark, and with that's kind of our sweet spot. Um,
Yep.
we're knocking those out from design to handing the keys back over about 2.5 to 3 months with
Okay.
inspections and everything. Yeah.
And you're entirely off the tools now. Is that right?
Almost. Mostly.
Almost
I'm I'm
working
I'm
there.
I'm 85% off the tools now. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah.
And so when you look for trade partners and subcontractors and kind of, you're essentially leveraging them to get the work done, how are you finding these people and, how are you managing them? I mean, do you have multiple, go-tos, or like do you have just kind of one crew? Like how many jobs you running at one time, and how many crews are you managing at once?
So, luckily, I'm not managing any of the crews. That's all onto the trade partners. But we're running 2 or 3 jobs at a time. And
Okay.
that's about what my bandwidth is. And then as we're bringing on more, and this year's been kind of a little wonky, right? A lot of us have felt the change in the buying habits of the consumer. But as we're coming out of 2024, I am seeing an uptick. And so I'm anticipating probably in the next 4 or 5 months, we are going to have that PM that's going to be managing, helping me manage these projects. But as far as the trade partners go, I do have like an A team that I primarily work with, and they've got 2 to 3 crews that they have so we can cover these projects. Um, but I'm it's similar to the philosophy of always be marketing to your clients. I'm always marketing to trade partners as well. And so I'm constantly looking through Facebook groups, looking through my networking groups for additional trade partners to bring on board so that, hey, if somebody does have a conflict in the schedule, we got somebody else that we can pop in there real quick.
I love that, man. I tell people all the time in one of my particular talks where I talk about my business playbook. One of the things that, we talk about is building a great team. It means that you have to manage your applicants, and whether it's employees or trade partners, whatever it may be. You need to manage them just like you manage your leads. Just because they say no today doesn't mean that that's no forever. Like, you need to keep following up, keep working them, like stay in front of them, like, if when you find a great person, like, you gotta, don't let no be no. Like, keep working it, keep staying on top of it, and at the right time, hopefully you can get them to join your team, and it's so important though that you do, just like what you said, manage that pipeline because you want to keep building up that bench. And so I love hearing that you treat them just like leads and you stay on top of them. That's the way to do it.
Well, and just like clients and like leads, once you do have them, you wanna keep them, especially if they're good, right? A lot of times in these contractor Facebook groups, you see GCs in particular asking questions, "Well, do you want your trades to be wearing your company T-shirt, or, do you care about them posting things on social?" No, I don't. I don't want them wearing my shirt, I want them wearing theirs. I want them to take pictures of the work they're doing, I want them to be proud of it, I want them to tag me, right? Tag Black Lab in their posts, and I'll do the same thing, to give them shout outs because that that is their own company, and they
No.
should be proud of that, and they should get recognition for the awesome work that they do. And if they get another job without me involved, but because they were working on one of my jobs, all the better, and then also pay them quick, right? Make sure
That
they're not waiting on you for that money that, you said you were gonna pay them. So, take
so
good care,
how
'cause
do you
like you would any other employee.
yeah. So what are your payment terms with your trades?
So, my payment terms with my trades is they send me an invoice, and on Wednesday of the week, and by Friday, they're getting paid, for that. And the way I set up the progress payments in the contract allow that cash flow to happen.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. That's a huge perk.
Well,
Getting
I
paid
I
on
know
time.
I know too many other guys are they come when I ask them what the biggest headache it is for them working with a GC, they're usually telling me it's getting paid.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what would you say, when you think back about, again, you've been at this for a decade. What would you say, like, what has been like the biggest challenge that you've faced in getting this business up and running?
Mm. Getting the cash flow right.
Hmm.
That has definitely been the biggest challenge for me, and it's getting better. It's constantly tweaking it, but, with the regulations we have to work within in California, and I know there's other states out there that are heavily regulated too, it's figuring out how to toe the line and maybe play a little bit in the gray area, but not cross that line to get the cash flow to come through on as needed.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that what is it, like, you can't collect more than like $1,000 deposit?
It's
The
10% or
1,000 feet?
$1,000, whichever is less.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
yeah,
that's, it seems it seems a little bit rough. What is
it
how do you manage that?
that's where the design agreement comes in to play a lot, and being able
Mm,
to get that going and front load a little bit there so that you've got enough to then go out and get the trades and get things going.
makes sense. There you go. I hadn't, put that all together, but I can see that being really helpful. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so interesting that, so many people like cash flow is one of the biggest challenges, I see for contractors because like, just because you have money in the bank does not mean that that's your money. You
right.
might, need to pay out twice as much tomorrow. And, the concept of kind of cash flow because it's constant, it's coming in, it's going out, and like getting a good handle on that can be very, very challenging for people, to get their head around. And then as you take on larger jobs, it just exponentially kind of grows this delta. And so, again, one big slip and that can really put you in a world of hurt.
Absolutely. And just making sure that I like the profit first method of keeping the accounts. So I definitely I have a client deposit account, and that gets loaded up first thing with, their deposits, and then we start taking money out as needed, but to keep track of that. It's not it's one client deposit account, not one for each project, because that just gets a little crazy with bookkeeping.
Yeah.
But it does help make sure that the money is there, right? And it makes sure that there's that differentiator that no, that's not Black Lab's money yet. We'll get it, but it's it's not ours yet.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend, with like job costing and trying to understand, your numbers and making sure that, what you're selling is what you're going to deliver on?
Oh man, that has been probably the biggest change in the last 10 years. Um, because now I've got something that allows me to do that in a really easy format.
Yeah.
And so
You
the amount of time that I spend is a lot less than I used to, just because it's more efficient.
Yep.
But there's weekly updates for each job. Um, then there's at the end of each job within 3 days, we've basically closed it out by going in and checking what all the costs are and cross-referencing everything, and making sure that everybody's been paid and all that. But no, it's the one of the highest priority things on the closeout list as we're going through the final job walk.
Yeah, so maybe walk us through what's your closeout process look like, and at the end of the day, how do you define success for a project?
So our closeout process is making sure that we've got our permit binder, right, and project binder, and so we go through, make sure everything's signed off, make sure that we have all the corresponding expense reports for that. That goes through job tread and verified in there. Everything's checked off. Once we get down to the actual gross profit, we sell everything at a 50% or better. Most of our jobs are between a 65 and 55% gross profit when we sell it. And then we're aiming to be no lower than 45% once we close out the project. So, as far as profit success goes, that's what defines a successful job. But ultimately, the end of the day, it's whether or not the client is going to refer us or give us that review. That's the ultimate success of a project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's that's interesting. So you sell the job around 65 to 55% GP, but ultimately want to make sure you don't go lower than 45. Like, have you seen any trends on like what are the things that like, kind of keep happening that will sort of end up, causing that slippage?
So usually it's me, and it's my lack of there is that downfall, right, to not having all the experience being in construction. So there's ultimately something that I will forget. As I've transitioned to more of a submodel, that slippage is getting less and less because
Yep.
I'm not responsible for all the little details of what's going to be going in there.
Yep.
So that is in my favor. Um, the one thing that I've actually noticed more than anything is now I'm actually able to account for my time on the job and figuring out what that looks like and that usually I've never really assigned a dollar value to that in these jobs, and then more recently I've started applying my field labor number to that, and that's where I'm seeing a little more of that slippage come out. So I have to fine tune that when I go to sell the job next time.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, being able to leverage the amount of time to how much you had in there and what your, whatever the task is at hand, allows you to come up with that production rate. And, you can start to get really granular with that. So if, when you're doing, whatever trade, type work you're doing, or if it's just kind of getting out there and the amount of time you're spending out on the job site, kind of doing, some of the project management. I mean, starting to track that can really help you kind of refine that estimating, like you're saying.
Yeah. I'm
Do
also
do you
having a good sorry.
well, go ahead. No, no, go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm also starting to track the amount of time that I'm spending in the design part, because I gotta
Yeah.
make sure that I'm billing that out correctly as well. So,
Yeah. So as I was curious, do you have your trades, do they bid on the job before you basically go and sell it? Are you involving them upfront?
so I'm talking to the client first, and I'm giving the client that range, right? And
Okay.
then we basically are selling it at a rate that I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to get all the trades in there. Um, I do talk to all my trades as well way before the phone call ever happens, and we start talking about different scenarios. Okay, what if this client wants that Italian porcelain shower surround, and they want to have two shower heads and a new tankless hot water heater. Um, what would that look like from your aspect of it if I'm talking to the plumber, right? Okay, and to my electrician, okay, what's it going to be with a panel upgrade and 7 can lights and a bunch of outlets put in.
Yeah.
If we need 3 different circuits added to this kitchen, what does that look like? And so we start envisioning, because not everybody is used to doing, again, the Shinfu, where we will give those estimates off of pictures, um, and a phone call. So not everybody's trained up yet in how to think this way, or to track their projects this way. But now I'm seeing more and more of my trade partners, they're getting into software programs similar to JobTread, if not using JobTread. And now they're able to track their history of their jobs, and it makes that conversation much more easy to have, and for them to come up with those
Mm.
numbers on the fly.
Yeah. That's, it's something that, when the trade partners also have a good handle on their numbers and can quickly turn out estimates, that directly affects your ability to be very responsive as well. So, I could see the more trained up they are, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What would you say, like, when you get into a project? I mean, how often are you having to use change orders, and kind of how often is the scope, changing after you've already kicked off the project, and how do you manage that?
Well, because we spend so much time in design, we try to iron out all the major changes that would be, aesthetics are ironed out, usually up ahead. Um, so we're not seeing a whole lot of changes then, but occasionally, you open up a wall and there's a surprise. So we definitely use the change order process. It's one of those things where, again, this is kind of that gray area, where we use Croming's law for our contract law, and for a lot of the verbiage in the change orders. And we do get the client to pay those upfront, and that's really a deal breaker too. If they're not willing to do that, then we're gonna pause on the project, and if it's something that absolutely has to be done before we close up the wall, then we'll have that tough conversation with the client.
Mm.
Um, but that's primarily how we handle change orders. It's all done through JobTread, added to the budget, changes the budget. There's all the conversations happen, and they sign off on it before we get to
Yeah.
work.
That's, it's interesting you bring up chromines, and the importance of, having contracts. I mean, I see so many people that, they just go and get into a job and get into the work, and they're doing job after job, and they're like, "Ah, nothing's happened," and they don't realize that they need, to have that legal contract in place. And the point is not to have to play defense. You want to be proactive, and you want to make sure that you've got, the right protections in place for when the job doesn't end up, going how you wanted. And it's so crazy to think that like people would just like, go run these jobs, and especially as you get larger and larger jobs without having, a good contract in place like that. That could be the difference between you staying in business and going out of business. It's crazy that, I can't even believe when I run across contractors that don't have anything. Like seriously, like jobs get sold all the time with no contract, no terms, no conditions. And I think it's so important that people, I mean, it's such a nominal, expense in the bigger picture here. And with Carolyn and Chromenes, like, they literally are giving you a flat price to get a contract in place that's like customized to your business. It's like a couple $1,000. Like it could save you, hundreds of thousands, or it could save your entire business in a worst case scenario.
It's some of the best insurance you could possibly buy for a business. And it also makes those tough conversations so much easier because I'm not the bad guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I just show them the contract. Remember, this is what you signed.
Yep.
This is the bad guy.
Do
Don't yell at
do
me.
do,
Yell
do
at the
people
contract.
d- do any of your clients, do they ever, I mean, this day and age, a lot of contracts, it's just people just kind of skip right past it. But do you find that, like, I mean, are the customers reading through it? Are they asking questions? Do they ever redline anything, or is it just typically just, hey, yeah, we're good with
No.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just sign it. And that that's part of the process though as well. When we get to getting that deposit check or to move forward after the design, it's having that agreement there in front of them. I have it on my iPad, and I show them both the agreement that they just signed and the check, and I slide the check back over, and I said, "Before you give this to me, do you have any questions about this? Because in here is our agreement. This is what I'm promising to do. This is what you're promising to pay me when you're planning to pay me, and when we will have this project done, barring any change orders. But this is our agreement, and that usually catches them off guard, right? They kind of look at you funny, but they will ultimately say, "No, I don't have any questions," and they slide the check back over and say, "Let's get to work."
Hmm.
Great.
Yeah, that's great,
So
man. You're giving them every opportunity to make sure that their questions are answered. And I mean, I think that probably builds a lot of trust right there in that small little gesture that you do. I like that a lot. Do what kind of coming back to again cash flow. What does your payment schedule like? How do you structure these payments? I mean, that the deposit, which we won't even really call a deposit. How do you actually structure the payments?
the payments are it depends on the size of the project, right? And how long it's going to run. But we're basically each phase gets closed out with a progress payment. And the next phase doesn't start until that progress payment is received. Even though the contract says that they have 10 days to pay, um, when we send them the email for with the invoice, it says, hey, just to make sure there's no hiccups going forward and we don't cause any delays, please make sure you pay this progress payment, with ASAP, right?
Yeah.
And we don't see that they've opened up that email within 24 hours. We're calling them. Hey, did you did you see that email? Did it go to your junk mail? We want to make sure that we can show up on Monday and still work with you,
Hmm.
type of thing. So
Do you have a like one thing Carolyn taught me was that in really a lot of situations where if you don't get paid, like you may have to legally continue working unless you have a clause in your contract that says that failure to make a progress payment allows you to stop work. Is that something that you have in your contract?
it is, the state of
Yeah.
California makes sure that we have 10 days before we can actually enact that clause. So,
Interesting. Okay.
um, we we suggest they pay us sooner than that, right? But we do have to perform for 10 up to 10 days without payment.
Hmm.
So
Have you
technically they
ever
could go. No, I've never had to pull off a job site.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What what would you say has been, I mean, are there any situations that you've gotten into where you felt really uncomfortable either with the client or the project, and like you've had to kind of adjust and or sort of maybe even pull back off the job, like, and what did you learn from that?
So I'll give you 3 examples. When I when I used to be in the financial services, as an insurance agent, one of the best lessons I ever learned was how to fire a client. And um, it is the scariest thing that you'll ever do, and it doesn't get any less scary each time you do it. But the weight that gets lifted off your shoulders is immense. Um, so learning that in early on in my career, if you will, that has proven to be very helpful to me in the construction world. Um, when I first got started, I'll never forget this. I had a guy that wanted a concrete area fixed, and I was patching up the thing, and I pulled up all these roots and everything like that, and put in some rebar and everything. Well, he came out and he was just yelling and screaming and cursing and everything. And I just looked at him. I handed him the trowel and said, "You're good. Thank you very much. We're done here," and kind of walked off the job site then. But back then I didn't have a contract. I walked away from the money too, on that. Then more recently, we had a client that absolutely did not want to do the change order. We had them um, sold on doing a bathroom remodel. There was a drain pipe that was broken underneath the stairway, and it went by the bathroom, and they really wanted us to take a look at that as well. But when it came time to sign the change order and pay for everything up front, they were digging their heels in the sand and just not wanting to do that. And he was a civil engineer for a municipality in Central California, and he thought he was gonna play games with the little residential remodeling guy. So I looked at him and I said, "Well, unfortunately, you haven't been communicating with us in the last 3 weeks, and um, per the contract that we have for your bathroom remodel, that is a breach of the contract, and we're gonna have to part ways." And so again, making that contract being the bad guy, um, on that,
Yep.
we we went ahead and dissolved the agreement.
Hmm.
So
Are there, when you go and you start talking to a prospect, are there any red flags that you're looking for to kind of be early signs that this might not be an ideal client for you?
yeah, I usually like to listen for how they talk about the previous contractors that they've worked with. Um, I like to hear, and sometimes people are just very open about it, and they'll tell you, I just got out of this really bad construction agreement, and was going through litigation and all of that, and you're like, whoa, whoa, time out. Let's talk about that. What
Yeah.
led to this litigation, right? So you can peel back some of those things. But I think more it's just their general tone, how they treat other people on the phone. When you dig into what their motive is, how they talk about their significant other or family members that are going to be involved in this. Um, my business in particular is really geared towards working with families, and restoring kitchens to be a central location for the family to come together and all that. And that's just something that's near and dear to my heart. And so if I'm not catching that vibe from people that this is the reason or a big reason why they're wanting to do the project, then that kind of lets me know that maybe this isn't the right client for our company.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, at the end of the day, if if you see those early warning signs, like it's like, you're just doing it to yourself if you keep pushing forward. I mean, and then you got to think about how are they going to treat, my contractors or treat, my employees or, treat you later. I mean, it's like, I think in this day and age, it really is important that, both the client's vetting the contractor and the contractor's vetting the client, because,
Oh,
you
100%.
you've only got so much time that you can spend working with clients. And, at the end of the day, you got to make sure that it's going to be a win-win for everyone.
One of the coaches in Battleground, Tim Catroni, he says there's only so many days that I can build ponds in the year, right? Or even in his lifetime. And it's very true. For us kitchen remodelers, there's only so many kitchens we can do in a year or even in our lifetime. So why waste time with somebody that doesn't want to really work with you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, Al, like what's the longer term vision here? Where do you want to take the business, and where do you see yourself in, call it 5 years?
Uh 5 years, I see myself being very hands off on the projects, really focused on simply growing the business and morphing it into the the company I've always dreamed of having, which is one that gives me my time and uh, the freedom to do the things I want to do with my wife. Our kids are going to be in college in the next few years, so we'll want to be able to do vacations with them. But for the most part, my wife and I have plans of traveling all over the United States and a little, you know, uh, what do they call it? The sprinter bands, camping and all of that. That's just being able to run the business from Texas if need be,
It's a great
right?
place to be.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I think the having a company where the people that I employ and the trade partners that we work with are also able to succeed and find the lives that they want. That's huge for me. Again, life's too short to work with people or to be surrounded by people that aren't wanting to be in your circle.
Sure. What do you think, what are the biggest, like, changes that you're gonna have to make to be able to reach that vision?
Um, well, and it's something I'm trying to do right now in forms of baby steps, but that's delegation. Delegating some of these things to others. Yeah, I know I suffer from small business itis, which is grasping onto everything, and the only person that can do it right is me.
Yep.
And so being willing to give some of that up and allowing others to partake in it and to run with it is actually something I'm very excited about. Um,
Yeah.
because I know that's what it's going to take to get this business to the next level.
Yeah. No, it is a real challenge, I think, for just about every entrepreneur. This is our baby, right? We just want to keep putting on all the hats. We'll do it all. We're not gonna let things, fall through the cracks. And it's like, man, when you try to do everything though, it can be very hard to do everything great. And learning to delegate. I mean, the thing that I've learned is that, the first step to being able to delegate is make sure that you have the right people on the team who you can wholeheartedly trust, and will do a great job. They'll care, they'll put their effort into it, and they'll make it happen. And look, at the end of the day, even if it's, almost as good as you would have done, we'll call it 80, 90%, the fact that you're getting it done instead of, I know we all tend to, pile things on and take it all on, and then, it often results in not getting done right away. I think it is a huge win, to learn how to delegate. And I think it takes building a team to be able to have that trust and do that.
Absolutely, and truly, it from my time working at the senior living community, that's probably the one thing I do miss the most is having that team, because I did have a team there, and just making light hands, right, or light
Yeah,
work with many hands. So
yeah. What do you when you wake up every day, I mean, what are you most excited about?
changing somebody's life, I think that's the whole reason why I'm in this now. It started out of necessity, but now, like, I actually get to go inside someone's home and change their life by
Yeah.
making an improvement that, either they've been wanting to have for 15, 20 years, or they just bought the house and now they want to make it their home.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you can really start to see the impact that you're making and that your work is having on the families and the end users of, these projects. I mean, that's I think when you really can start to appreciate, what you're doing. It's not just about the money. For people to be happy and fulfilled with their life, they have to believe that they're making an impact, and I always believe that, if you focus on doing great work and doing right by your customers, taking care of them and their needs, put yourself, second to that, then the money often comes because when you can bend over backwards and you take care of your clients, that reputation that you create will far exceed kind of just this one project. That those are the things that become known out there in the community, in the marketplace, and that customer will become a customer for life because they see that you did right by them. I
Well,
think
and
that's so
there's
important.
a difference between bending and breaking, right? You bend for the right clients, and you don't ever break your business principles or practices, um, because there is also some integrity that needs to be there that the clients will respect, and ultimately will care for and want you to have as a business. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in conclusion here, I'm curious, kind of as we wrap up, like, what advice would you give to other contractors who, earlier on in their career, trying to figure out how to go full time, or they just started the business? Is there anything that you wish you would have known, back when you started your business that you now know, or just kind of any general advice that you might give for others who want to follow in your footsteps?
Uh, a Get some training, and not the pounding a hammer training. Get some training on how to communicate with others, and not just the clients, but other people in the trades, your family. Learn learn how to communicate well with those around you, and you're gonna find the hack to that is you close your mouth and you listen.
Man, that's that's awesome. I wasn't expecting learn to communicate, and the best way to communicate is to stop and listen. I mean, but it's so true, right? Like if so many times, like, people are thinking about what they're gonna say next and they're not focusing on what the other person is actually saying. And man, that's great advice.
Well,
I definitely need to
I can't claim coming up with it. I've been paying attention.
yeah, I'm sure my wife would agree with you though that I should listen more. Speak
All of our
less.
wives would agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, it really that's great advice, Al. I mean, communication is so important, and at the end of the day, like, people are, can be great at whatever skill or trade or thing that they're doing, but like if you can't communicate with them, if you can't have a positive, healthy, constructive, conversation, whether it's giving them praise or giving them criticism, and being able to kind of have that healthy back and forth dialogue, it makes everything so much harder. So I totally agree. It kind of makes me think right before my wife and I got married, we went to this workshop. It was called Safe Conversations, and it taught us how to, basically make sure that, like, first it's like, hey, is now a good time? are we both in a state and position to have a safe conversation? Like, can I open up about something? Like, if now's not a good time, then let's not force it, right? Like, you got to make sure that it's a good time to have those tough conversations. But once you are, and it is a good time, like being able to kind of have that back and forth, and like repeating what you've heard. Instead of focusing on what you're going to respond with, focus on, hey, here's what I heard. Did I get that right? Is there anything else? And kind of having that back and forth and giving that person the opportunity to follow up before you just come jumping in. I know I can be terrible about wanting to jump in and just start going. It's like, no, let them speak, let them get it out, let them share what they're trying to share, and then okay, well, here are my thoughts, and then that
Right.
person kind of repeating back, well, hey, here's what I heard. Is that right? And it makes all the difference in the world when you can have good conversation with your colleagues, your partners, your trades, your clients. Like, man, I love that advice, Al. That is a great point. All right, man. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing how you've built your business. I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a decade. You know your business inside and out. You've seen the challenges. You've transformed it from being a handyman to a full-blown, licensed remodeler, which is awesome. Congrats, and I'm excited to see where the next 5 to 10 years, go for you, because I think that there's, again, you're not going to just sit back on your laurels. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep investing in yourself and improving and growing. And I can't wait to see when you got a full blown team built out there, and you guys are running multiple jobs while Al's driving around the country in his van, enjoying the sights and dialing in when he's needed. That's
That's right.
it's exciting.
Well, thank you, Eric. And thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and again, look forward to seeing your continued progress. And also, I want to say thank you to everything that you do for the community. I mean, I've seen how active you've been in Battleground, how active you are with Job Tread Pros and our community. Like, it means a lot to see people who genuinely are willing and excited to help others grow and improve. And you're such a great support person. You're such a great resource to so many other contractors. And I know that probably often goes, it's a thankless job, but like, I see it, and I know that you're making an impact, sir. And I wanted to share that. I appreciate that and appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you guys do, and your team is just bar none phenomenal. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Great talking with you. I hope you have a great weekend.
Likewise.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.